Pacers Knicks game 2 tonight. What are the keys to the second game of the series for the Pacers, who have bounced back well through the playoffs? How can they get Tyrese Haliburton going? What did work well in game 1 that they'll need to try to lean on? Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fans Morning Show is going to join us to break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Wednesday. It's game 2, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, lots to dive into from game 1 to game 2. More time to dissect it all, talk to the Pacers at practice, which they had at the middle of the day on Tuesday, figure out what that means for game 3. The big headline, of course, Tyrese Haliburton, getting him going as he eases into his second straight series. Can he be more effective in game 2? And can the Pacers do what they did in the first round series, lose game 1, and then come out in game 2 and get their only and most important win on the road in a series? Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fan is going to join us to break all that down. We get into a ton of stuff, pressing on defense, guarding other Knicks players in a different way, getting other guys going on offense, other stuff that didn't work for the Pacers in game 1. Kevin was great, and I'll be on with him tomorrow morning on the morning show if you want to hear that. Also, yes, this is my super depressing hotel room. I am very sorry you'll have to be subject to this for the next 30 minutes, but let's just dive in with Kevin Bowen. The GOAT is back, the man who talks to Rick Carlisle more than me during the playoffs. It's Kevin Bowen from the morning show at 107.5 The Fan, and the most perfectly qualified person to discuss Pacers Knicks, because Tyrese Haliburton wearing a Quentin Nelson jersey is something that I should know more about. Kevin covers the Colts too. Kevin, how are you? Did you like the Quentin Nelson references? What did you think of game 1? We have so much to talk about.
I am good, Tony. Always great to chat with you. There were times I thought maybe Quentin Nelson might look better at point guard than Tyrese Haliburton the other night. So, yeah, I know. I can't even believe that I can say that comment and not, laugh at myself for it. So just a wild game. I mean, one of the more entertaining, crazy games I've seen in quite some time. And, unfortunately, a lot of stuff that I think you or I don't love to talk about either with it. Excited to see how this team responds. It's been such a staple all year long, but I do think this challenge is a little different.
Yeah, I did the officiating stuff yesterday. I don't want to do that too much. I kind of want to look ahead, but to look ahead in a playoff series, you by default have to look backwards, right? Because what happens in each game goes ahead to the next game. And you nailed the key topic, right? We just got back from practice. Pacers were at I can't say where they were. They were in New York. It was good to see them all. And we had a lot of questions about Tyrese. And so he's the starting point for me for obvious reasons. He had 6 points on 6 shots, and I think he took 1 shot in the second half of the whole game, which was stunning itself. Here's why I think this is an interesting, in a bad way, conversation. I wrote the exact story after game 1 of Pacers Bucks of like, hey, they have to get him going, right? It feels very similar now to then. And so I have 2 operating theories here, and this will make people's eyes roll and the word excuse will come out. They are not excuses. These are bad things. One is his back clearly is a factor here, I think. 2 is, I think because this happened in the first series, and I asked him this at practice today, what we know of Tyrese Haliburton, I think there's an element of like feeling out the series as like a high usage score and passing guy. That is the case for lots of stars in the NBA. And it takes him a game to hop in and figure out where he can be the most impactful. And he had a billion assists in game 2, and they won in Milwaukee for their only road win of the postseason in the first round. Like not having it in game 1 is not a good thing. I'm not saying this is good. I think this is something about him that is a fact that we saw in the first round and now again in the second round. And so 1, what do you think he wasn't doing well enough in game 1? And 2, do you think that is a factor about him that will make him better beyond the just look at the film adjustments in game 2?
Yeah, I'm as puzzled and confused as you are. I don't do this a whole lot, Tony, but I actually came home from the show today and I went back and watched the fourth quarter again. I just felt like I had to get my eyes on it again. And what specifically did I see from Haliburton in that quarter? Because that's the one that really stands out as such a stark contrast. And, to pull the NFL analogy in rather early, quarterbacks get graded differently in the red zone and in 2 minutes and in the fourth quarter, and $200 million guys and star players in the NBA get graded differently in those moments. So if I had to sum it up, I would just say there was no real desire means I'm like getting into his personality, which is probably unfair, but I just didn't see a very attacking mindset. And not even as a scorer. Certainly he doesn't take a shot. That stands out. But, how many times do you think all year, Tony, he's had a 10-minute stretch, which he went back in with like 9:40, 9:30 to go. How many times do you think all year he hasn't taken a shot or had an assist in a 9:30, 9:40-minute stretch? I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to find one time all year. And even, one 10-minute stretch without just a shot or just an assist. Maybe there are some assist stretches in there, but I saw a lot of deferring to others, let Nembhard initiate, let Pascal initiate. And there are times where obviously the Pacers want to do that. They want to get Haliburton a little bit off the ball. I think they ran a couple of like the Spain action there late. And I thought when he had some moments to where, he was potentially, in positions to make some plays, a 70-30 advantage with my eye, it just didn't look like he wanted to pursue that any further. So again, how much of it, back to your question, is injury related? There probably has to be something there, but then there's moments in this playoff series or going back to the Milwaukee series, I'm like, wait, did Haliburton just dunk? Like
20 shots in the game, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I just, I can't go all the way there. I mean, Carlisle said with us, this morning at this point of the season, everybody's dealing with something along those lines. So it was just such a puzzling fourth quarter and a disappearing act, hesitancy, however you want to describe it. I think those are all really accurate statements. And those are big words. I think, Tony, like I don't use a lot of those words or hot takey. So for me to even go there, that's why I wanted to watch it again to kind of, confirm what I was saying this morning. And when I watched it again, it was more passive and even uglier than I, remembered it being the first time.
Here's how I know you're not hot takey, Kevin. Every time you come on, the top 3 comments are like, love Kevin. He always tells it like it is. Tony, I wish you talked like that. So good job, Kevin. You're all over it. Here's the same thing I said after game 1 of the Bucks here. I hate that I'm going back to this so much, but I agree with a lot of stuff you just said. The last game, he's through 79 passes. Right. That is tops of every NBA player in their last playoff game. I only use the last game sorting because that's what it is. But like Jokic 77, Harden 73. No one else is over 70. Like that's what he does a lot. And so in the Bucks game of round 1, it was the same thing. It was like 80 passes and he had like 8 assists and 20 potential assists and they lost. And there's a point where with him and the team reaching their ceiling, and everybody said this going into this series too, right? Like the difference between the Knicks and Bucks requires him to be better than he was in the first series, even though he had good moments. Like that's good that he's passing to that extent. I think when he sees new coverages or a new defense or a new team, in this case, the Knicks, he is inclined to be like, let me see how they're defending us, get everybody else involved, keep it moving. And other guys stepped up and did good stuff. Like every starter shot 50% or better from the field. They shot pretty well from deep. Like that's all good stuff. But like Haliburton self-creating his own shot or him getting into the paint is still the best Pacers offense by far. It has been all season. It has been for portions of the playoffs. He had a triple-double in their best win of the postseason so far. He had 24 points in their next one. Like, we've all seen it. We all know it. And so I guess I understand why he took 6 shots, but I don't think that's good at all. And I get why he took through 79 passes and had 15 potential assists. By the way, James Harden throwing 73 passes, he had 13 assists, right? Like, it's just – that says a lot about the shots that were made or generated from his passes. Like there's a difference between, and I think this just goes back to what you said about him feeling passive at times. There's a difference between passing like, oh, here's 2 guys and Andrew Nembhard's right next to me. I'll give him the ball. And like, I got into the lane and I threw somebody open because I made the defense rotate. Right, and that's where the next level is for him. Even if he only takes, like he did in game 2 in the Milwaukee series, 10 shots in that series, he had better, higher quality passes that set up his teammates. He had, I think, 13 assists in that game, 14. And so the offense was still humming with him out there. They crushed the Bucks in that game, and it mattered a great deal. So I also think he needs to shoot more than 6 times. Duh. Like only one player who played for the Pacers took less than him. That's crazy for a star player. But I'll say the same thing I said in the Bucks series. I think if it goes from 6 to 12, if they defend him the same way, that's fine as long as the passing quality goes up. And that's where I think the passive part really shined and why the 0 assists in the fourth quarter numbers may be just as interesting as the 0 shots.
Yeah. And I'll go back to kind of, I guess, expand on that last point you just made right there to what I saw in rewatching the fourth quarter. I charted hockey assists too, because I feel like I feel like that honestly needs to be talked about, frankly, just more in today's basketball language. whatever. But he had one little feed to Siakam, which then Siakam fed it to Jackson, and Jackson hit a layup. And I think maybe one other, but even not like just even when he threw that initial pass to other guys, I'm like, that is not necessarily a pass to like lead to the, hey, you've got the better angle. Go ahead, feed it here. Boom. There's going to be an easy layup off of that. And I try to watch DiVincenzo a lot to see how much face guarding was going on. I mean, you can probably speak to it better because you're in the arena, Tony, but like, I didn't think it was like this menacing, by all means, we're not letting Haliburton touch the ball. Like I noticed it of a give up to Nembhard or a give up to Siakam and then kind of stand on the wing and just not the, I need to get this back at some point here in the shot clock. And I don't think the Pacers are that equipped to survive 4-on-4 if you remove DiVincenzo and Haliburton from it. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but maybe Siakam gets back to, game 1, game 2, but I just don't love that matchup against this Knicks team. Maybe against the Bucks, I like it a little bit more, but not against this team. And I would just say one more thing to add to kind of this overall thought, and it's something I shared with our listeners on our morning show today. I've heard this notion of like, and Carlisle even kind of said it to us of like, hey, we're at our best when everybody's touching it and it's super balanced. And, the Pacers throw out the graphic after every game that they have 7 or 8 guys in double figures. And, it is kind of we share the basketball here. And 49 states is just, it's ball hogging, but this is Indiana. And I'm like, well, let's go back when the Pacers played their best basketball this season. In-season tournament, the group stage, and certainly those first couple games leading into the finals. And if you look at Haliburton's numbers, and I wanted to make sure that I pulled these up, Tony, and this is from our morning show that I shared today. These are his points and assists in those 8 in-season tournament games. 18-13, 33-15, 37-16, 26-10, 26-13, 27-15, and 20-11. So right there, you have certainly consistent high-level assisting, facilitating, however you want to describe that. But you also have some pretty damn high-level scoring. So I don't want to lose sight of that when you're playing quality opponents in bigger atmospheres, and this is probably the best that your team's played all year. I'm not saying like, if it's not 33-15 tomorrow night, they lose, but can you start incrementally getting, more into that, a little bit of scoring and certainly the facilitating that is probably his biggest calling card.
And even the games they won these playoffs, right? Siakam in the high 30s, Turner at 29 twice, right? And game 6 was truly like what you just talked about, like a bunch of guys in double figures and their leading scorer 21. But usually they need someone to reach that apex, and Haliburton seems like a natural fit to do it, and he hasn't been able to. And I get that cutting off him cuts off the water for the Pacers the most. He was their second lowest plus-minus player in the last game, but he's just got to get going, or at least have so much gravity, like in games 2 and 3 to me of the first round, that someone else can have, Siakam numbers or Turner numbers or whatever. And that didn't happen either. Their leading scorer had 23. To your point, by the way, the NBA tracks hockey assists. Did you know this?
Oh, gee. Okay. Well,
in the playoffs, Haliburton averaging 1.3 per game.
And
that actually leads the Pacers. Regular season, I don't know. Let me pull that up. You're good with these follow-up questions that like make sense and are interesting to listeners. Regular season, he was the only player on the team over 1. So, okay. But it is less than 1.3. So you're right, though. There were very few in the game we just saw. So a lot of stuff has to be better. And he's the guy with the ball. He's the head of the snake. Jalen Brunson had 20 whatever in the fourth quarter. That pushed the Knicks over the line. I think that's honestly the perfect example of the juxtaposition. What up, y'all? Let's take a short little break to talk about 2 great groups of people. First up, the good folks over at DoorDash. Want to make your mom smile? We'll start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from brands she loves delivered the very same day with DoorDash. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for your mom on DoorDash. Surprise her wherever you are. I used it today in New York to send something to my family in Indiana with a fresh bouquet or latest tech, gift card, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. It's never too late to show your mom love on Mother's Day. If your mom's got a sweet tooth, she loves tech, beauty connoisseur, she's outdoorsy, whatever she's into, you can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech, your workout wear, whatever, via DoorDash, and it'll be delivered the same day. A thoughtful gift. You can shop with savings that'll make your mom proud. With a Dash Pass membership, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15+ on your next flour, convenience, grocery, and or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Let's also talk about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, who have all the tools you need to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion with a B professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else, and LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is simple when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a quality candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing a ton of hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. That's why they're constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They have a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, and 2.5 small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You and yours should be next. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I have a couple things I want to get to that I didn't totally hammer home after game one. What other stuff kind of stood out to you from game one, either good or bad, that you'd like to see the Pacers either tweak ever so slightly or continue to lean on as we head into game two tomorrow?
Well, I have a question for you that I will get to at some point. And thank you for coming on our morning show tomorrow. So I will ask you it twice here.
I'll be well prepared
in an 18-hour period. But I could not. I can't say enough about the bench. I mean, just outstanding. Yeah. McConnell and Toppin to do that on the road. Like I'm such a big believer in the playoffs. Your others can show up at home, but they don't often travel. And I know others is kind of a very negative, it's probably a derogatory term to use, but like Malik Beasley and Pat Connaughton play great in game 5 in Milwaukee. Were they even on the floor in game 6 in Indiana? You know, it's rare for him. Look at McConnell. McConnell really poor in game 5, great in game 6. So for McConnell to just instantly when he went into the game, Tony, he just changed it. You know, I told you I went back and watched the start of the whole fourth quarter. McConnell gets a steal out of the freaking timeout, out of the stoppage. Like no one gets a steal to start a quarter off of an inbounds play, and he does it. And then he had the left-handed layup, and you know, Toppin was of course huge. And I thought Shepherd the kid always looks confident to me. And again, to be on the road and be a rookie, I mean, you know, the guy was playing at what? You know, I don't even know who's in the Missouri Valley. I guess Belmont is. I mean, Belmont's playing at Terre Haute in Evansville and, you know, some of those places. In Madison Square Garden, sure, he has an air ball in the fourth quarter, and that honestly started a little bit of a snowball the other way for the Pacers. But, you know, him and Isaiah Jackson, big as well. So I definitely want to commend the bench because at some point, Tony, and that I guess you can look at it one of two ways. The glass half empty is your bench is not going to play that great every night. It's probably a realistic expectation, even though they've been good this year. And you got it at the pace you want it, and you still lost the game. That's glass half empty. Glass half full could say, you know, this is a series that New York's got to punch you in round 1, 2, 3 if you want to make it the boxing analogy, because at some point you hope your depth, you know, kind of outlasts them. And so maybe you get it on the back end of the series. Now you've got to survive early on and get something early on to make the back end of the series matter. But that would kind of be the glass half full, is your bench doing that. If it can continue it night in and night out, that could help you moving forward.
Yeah, depth was a big talking point heading into the series. And one difference, but I don't know if it's unwillingness or what, but the Bucks are way more willing to go zone than the Knicks are with their physicality and defensive style. And so going zone when McConnell would come in really disrupted him a lot in round 1. Knicks didn't do that. And he just did the thing he does where he wiggles into this 8-foot shot that no one else in the NBA even takes, and he makes a bunch of them. And like it you know, I just criticized, and we both did, Tyrese for taking 6. Like you look back at the shot totals after game 1 and McConnell leads the team. And I'm like, yep, that should have happened given how the game was going and how he was playing. And Toppin phenomenal again. He actually made the East Bay dunk this time. So no harm, no foul on that one. If they can be that good, and again, that was a big talking point, is can they throughout a series? Because they're going to be going against starters almost all the time that they're out there. Not because the Knicks or because of what the Knicks do rotationally. They just play their stars a lot. Josh Hart played the whole freaking game. Like, you're going to be going against starters if you're a Pacers bench player. The fact that they can be that effective is very vital, especially to potentially rest your star player who has a back issue in this game. That is something I think can continue to the extent we just saw, where Toppin's 5 for 7 and makes 2 threes, and McConnell's 9 for 16, and Isaiah Jackson was awesome, and Ben Shepherd hits half his threes. Maybe not every game, but I think they can be pretty good given the way the Knicks like to defend and the speed of them going forward in the series. So I think that is a glass half full thing. Can I give you a glass half full thing?
Yes.
The Knicks almost made half their threes, and they got their heave out of the way. That you get one heave per series. There was none in Pacers Bucks, but everybody gets one heave per series. That's a forgotten thing. The Pacers lost by 4. Like, that's a huge shot in that game.
I thought it was a big momentum shot. Like, they were down 9 at the point. Yeah.
Well, down 9, and Haliburton just a shot we want to see more that we're talking about, just hit a nasty step back. Like, oh, there's Tyrese Haliburton doing that shot. And they were up 9, and the building went, 2 seconds to go. Dang it. And then all of a sudden, all the energy is right back. I tweeted this. Have you heard my beef with that shot yet? Did you read it yet? You saw Isaiah Hartenstein's shot, right?
Yeah.
4 steps, 5 steps behind half court, right? At least.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, the NBA logged that as a 46-foot 3-point shot. Did they think I don't know how long a basketball court is? Are they unaware of rulers? Like, that's clearly not a 46-foot shot. It doesn't matter.
I need you, Gene Hackman, out there on the floor tomorrow pregame, trying to get the attention of. I don't know if Silver will be in the building, but somebody important is going to be in the building. Make sure that they see you doing this.
You know that thing everybody does when they're pretending to measure, where they put one foot in front of the other? That's what I'll be doing all the way down. Okay, 58. Anyway, they shot it really well, and now here's the maybe not optimist way of phrasing it. Like, they shot that well against the Sixers the whole series, right? Josh Hart made threes that whole series. DiVincenzo made threes that whole series. Hart made his only 3. DiVincenzo's 5 for 9. Anunoby adds in a few. Bada bing, bada boom. You win. Those guys aren't known for that. Maybe they can do it in the playoffs, especially with the attention it takes to even kind of slow Brunson down. But, 47.8%, like, that's what the Pacers hit in that game that we all said in game 4 in the first round. We're like, they just won that game because they shot well. They didn't play that great. Like, that's kind of what the Knicks were at in this. I don't know that they'll hit that. They did a lot of other stuff really good. We'll get to that. But I think another glass half full thing, if you watch that game and you want to see progress from the Pacers going forward, is I don't think the Knicks will shoot that well from deep every game. In fact, that could have been their apex percentage-wise in the series, just given the personnel they have.
No, I think that's a good point. It was kind of stunning to look at Hart and DiVincenzo's numbers after the game and be like, wow. Yeah. They were that efficient. DiVincenzo's being asked to guard Haliburton, and he's whatever he was, 5 and 9 from 3, and they both shot it, tremendously well just from the floor in general. There's a thought, Tony, that, and I guess I'll kind of parlay this into the question for you, and I'll throw you the question, and then I'll kind of give a little depth behind it, and then ask you to answer it. Do you want to see any of Aaron Nesmith on Jalen Brunson more consistently from the start? And a thought I had going into this series, and I obviously do this a lot because, in my market, it's covering the Colts, it's covering the Pacers, or I should say our market, but it's also covering the college programs. Well, what did we see in the national title game? We saw Dan Hurley super content with saying, Zach Edey, good luck. We'll give up. Some of this is 2s versus 3s, obviously, but we will let Edey get his, and we'll see if we can single team him, and we'll just hug those shooters like no other. And do you take any of that approach with Brunson? Do you say, yes, we're going to put a Nembhard or a Nesmith on him, but we're not going to do as much of the doubling. Maybe the fourth quarter it changes if it's close, but we're not going to do as much as the aggressive hedging and trapping and all of that. But we can't have Hart do what he did last night. We can't have DiVincenzo do what he did last night. And Anunoby isn't built to go out and really get you, 25, 26. And the centers, of course, are not, individual playmakers either. So ask you, Nesmith on him any earlier, and or any theory to let Brunson get his maybe a little bit less efficiently, of course, and then try to hope that none of the others do anything crazy.
One more break here, guys. We can talk about Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know you're saying flag on the play. You've talked about that a lot recently, but I'm going to keep doing it because there's so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. There's more to win together, and the more awesome prizes you can unlock. You can get things like unique stickers that you can trade with your friends to complete albums and get big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis. I'm all about hilarity, and emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win, or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. Okay, so to point one, yeah, I think that's plausible. I mean, how much more size is that? Is Neesmith from Nemhard like 1-2 inches? It matters certainly. And Neesmith's a very tipsy player. He is just,
it's a little more strength if you want to look
strength.
at it from that end as well.
Exactly. Yes, I agree with that. Neesmith did something in the game. I can't remember what it was that I was like, oh my God, he's strong. I can't remember what it was. I turned to Dustin Dopirak during the game when we watched it again on the little monitor in front of us. That makes sense to me. And that is one thing about the Knicks in the series that was fascinating to me, is like, they're not that big, right? All the guys they play besides Hartenstein and Robinson are 6'7" and under. Anunoby's big, like he's bulky, he's strong, but there's a lot of places to hide other players or switch stuff around that makes sense. And that was a discussion round one I had, but it was harder to do against the Bucks, who had Dame and a bunch of big dudes. It's like, where do you put Nemhard if you want Neesmith on Lillard? In this series, it's a lot easier because there's a lot of guard-sized guys you can put Nemhard on. So I think it's possible they go to that in this opening five, and then you try. I believe that Haliburton was on Hart a lot, and then you put maybe Nemhard on DiVincenzo and say, don't let him beat you. He took 17 shots. Like, that's a lot. That's more than any Pacer took in the game. And I get that he played a bajillion minutes, but like, that's a fact of the game. So I think that that's something they could possibly go to, but it's also like, here's the thing about Brunson. Last year, the Heat did the opposite. The Heat tried what you described, and Brunson went crazy every game, and everybody else got slowed down, and the Heat won that series, right? They did pretty well, and Brunson's numbers were amazing, and everybody said, oh, wow, look how good of a playoff performer he was, and he looks amazing this year too. So maybe that is what it is. Like, help off a little less. Don't let Hart get going. Don't let DiVincenzo get going. Don't let – I don't even know what to call it. I need a name for this shot because I'm going to talk about the whole series. The Isaiah Hartenstein flip floater thing,
Yeah.
No one takes shots like that. I don't know. Rashawn
I
Holmes,
forgot he was left-handed till he shot it a couple
Took a
times.
free
to
throw.
be totally honest with you.
Yeah, he buries those. Like, that's his thing. I need a name for it. I'm going to refer to it a lot. So, like, that stuff going to happen to some extent. But if you limit those and let Brunson have 50, is that actually worse? Or is that better? Are those guys out of rhythm? Are they not as engaged? People talk about, like, being engaged in the game if you touch the ball more. Like, how does that affect their defense? All sorts of stuff that makes a lot of sense to try. And maybe Brunson's just going to be this guy the whole playoffs. I think that was his fourth straight 40-plus point game. And you might just lose if he's that good the whole series. But I'd rather – Jalen Brunson scored 60 and we lost. That's less painful maybe than, DiVincenzo and Hart hit 8 threes and we lost. What's more painful, or what are you more willing to live with as the Pacers is a good question.
Yeah, and I just think one additional point that I had entering the series, Tony, that we certainly saw play out last night, into game situations. You're going to get into all these clutch games. I mean, that's just how the Knicks are wired. The Knicks don't run away from you, which is a beautiful thing if you're the Pacers. They're not going to, I think, win a game by 20 or something in this series. So what does that mean? You're probably going to be in a bunch of, under 5-minute situations. And every game of that Sixers series was seemingly that. And, this full well, but, the Pacers struggled in the clutch after the All-Star break. And they only had one moment, game 3 against Milwaukee. And, that was clunky as hell for both those teams. Lillard was
if Dame doesn't get hurt, what happens in that overtime? Who knows?
Exactly. And what happens in the series? Does it go to his, 7th and Giannis, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, how do you handle in-game situations? And, it's not like the Knicks were perfect last night. Watching them inbound the ball there in the final minute was a disaster if you're a Knicks fan. So, but they are better equipped to handle it. They certainly have an absolute, frankly, a killer in Brunson. I think that it's fair to describe him like that. And then they kind of scrap their way to other baskets. And boy, when they needed turnovers last night, and certainly Haliburton helped them, but Anunoby gets back-to-back steals, and then Siakam at the rim tries to finish over him, and that leads to a little bit of a run out as well. So I just think those clutch situations, the Pacers aren't as used to it. They haven't been as good in them. The Knicks are used to them. They have been good in them. How do those continue to play out the rest of the series?
So I think in the final, I rewatched some of the fourth quarter myself. I think in the final 6 minutes of this game, there was about a minute and 25 seconds where I thought the Knicks were better than the Pacers. Here's the problem. That minute and 25 seconds was so bad for the Pacers that was kind of the game. For those of you who remember it, the Pacers were winning by 1, I think, 2. The score in the arena kept messing up, and I kept tweeting the wrong score.
Yeah, I saw your tweets about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad about that. I think I got it right. They were up 1 with about 5 minutes to go. And then they scored, and they get up 5. And then it was Brunson 3, Brunson free throw, Anunoby dunk, easy run out, Brunson bucket. And all of a sudden, the Knicks go on this 10-0 run, and they're up 4 with 2:42 to go.
And the Haliburton turnovers are in that.
The defensive possessions are bad there. Haliburton had 2 turnovers in that stretch. Siakam missed a layup in that stretch, and missed layups are what lead to runouts the most often, which the Pacers have been benefiting from in this postseason times. But that stretch was awful. That was their worst stretch of the fourth quarter by far. And then they came back a couple of times. They tied it up. Like the last minute, obviously had a bunch of controversy, but like they played pretty well in the last minute. They got 2 steals. They got good shots. They had a chance to win it late until the moving screen call. So like I think they played well in that minute in the average game. That was not the average game, obviously. I hate thinking about those plays. It's so stupid. Anyway, but I think they actually played okay. It's just that that 100 seconds that I just described was so bad. They cannot have that in the clutch because that killed them. That sunk them the game. They were up 9 early in the fourth.
Yeah, the other snowball sequence too, it was earlier in the fourth. And this is when I almost thought Rick had group punishment for everybody associated with the bench. You got up 9, and I think it was Shepard airball, McConnell grenade airball, and then you committed 2 fouls on inbounds plays. Obviously, we saw the icer of Nembhard there at the end, but I think it was Toppin 1, and I forget who the other one was, and that created the Knicks get to the line. Then they get an offensive rebound by Robinson. Hart gets the dunk, and all of a sudden, Madison Square Garden's alive. And Rick is he's done with everybody, I think, but Isaiah. I think he kept them in the game. But that was another one. I know that wasn't necessarily in the clutch moments, but that was another of just for the Knicks being this team that we describe. And I've been the person that's done it. I call them a Big Ten West football team. It's boring as hell, but they just get it done.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, Purdue fans out there, Big Ten West. I'm mainly thinking Iowa football, to be very clear here. They do have a little bit of spurt ability just because they create extra possessions, and you never know. Really, all of their guys outside of, certainly the bigs can kind of handle it and run a little bit, and I think you saw that. Anunoby had a couple run outs, and obviously Hart was, the dude he could go win the Boston Marathon seemingly tomorrow. So, I'm beyond curious to see how they respond. That's been such a staple. It's a question I asked Rick today when we had him on here on our show of just like, you've done it every point of the season. I just think tomorrow night is it's a unique challenge because the Knicks are wired differently than so many NBA teams.
I think it was Dustin who had this. I actually haven't looked this up, but people were asking this question before Game 6. They were 23-12 after losses, I believe, in the regular season for their 35, whatever. They had 35 losses, so that tracks to me. They got smoked in Game 1 of the first round. They looked great in Game 2. They did a lot of good stuff, right? They were one of their worst offensive performance I've seen with Tyrese Haliburton on the team in Game 5, and they were awesome in Game 6, right? So like that, their responsibility and adjustments are good, right? That is a Rick Carlisle, Tyrese Haliburton team to me. The Knicks are also very good. So what does that mean? Also, you mentioned to speed these guards. I've been in Madison Square Garden one time now. It was yesterday. I think players are faster in there. Isaiah Jackson looked crazy fast during the game to me. I think the Garden has something going on. Maybe it's that the hockey rink's right under it. I don't know. Also,
so are you going to take a stopwatch and your ruler onto the floor tomorrow?
I'll run my own 40-yard dash. Do I even have 40 yards of space? And then I'll send you the time. Look, I hear people talk about the Mecca, the Garden. If you have a chance to go and you're a basketball fan, go. It's pretty sweet. It's something else.
I've never been. It's obviously on the bucket list, and I Tony, I like you grew up in this market, and just Pacers Knicks means something differently. Yeah. And I am ashamed to say it publicly, but I just have so much respect for how they play. I do.
I have very New York team.
Yeah, and it's just it's old school, it's throwback, but damn is it effective. And it's probably shouldn't be shocking considering three of them, the main three are Villanova dudes, and we all watch Villanova certainly for years, have a crazy run. The other thing I'm worried about, and I'll just share this with you because I guess I'm venting a little bit, and I'm going to share it on our morning show tomorrow. And I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you lose tomorrow, there will be a good amount of blue and orange in that building Friday night, and that is. That is the one that I'm like, boy, having the 2 weekend games, it's nice for a lot of people, but it also could mean, especially if Knicks fans don't care for their mothers, they could be heading out here for game 3 and game 4. So, or maybe their moms will come with them. But that is just something of, obviously the urgency speaks for itself tomorrow night, but that's another little aspect that I can't help but think about after seeing what they did. Granted, Philly's much closer, but after what they did in round 1.
All right, I'm just going to burst out a few things I liked or maybe didn't like from game 1 that I want to see or at least have tweaks of game 2. 1, they pressed a lot, and I think they pressed a lot against the Bucks too, but specifically against the Knicks team that's going to play their guys a bajillion minutes, just to make them move that much more and have to run that much more, I think was really valuable. I actually think that worked. They got a few turnovers out of that. I hope that they stick with that. I thought that was a good in-season idea. The first quarter was really the only time I felt like the game was truly the Knicks paced the whole quarter. Pacers need to get out of that start, and Siakam was not good enough early. 3, there was a possession of the first half, 2 in a row actually, where Josh Hart was on Myles Turner in the post, and the Pacers tried to get Turner the ball in the post. They couldn't do it. They've got to, right? Turner's good enough at those now. He proved it in the first round and throughout the regular season. I didn't talk about this on yesterday's podcast I did, and I haven't talked about it with you yet, and now it's been 31 and a half minutes. So after an hour of talking, I finally get to say it. That Nesmith dunk was so sick. I'm so mad that didn't lead to anything because that's the best Pacers playoff dunk in a hot minute. That was unbelievable.
Toppin had the crazier decision. Nesmith had the better dunk.
I agree.
Now, I mean, the fact that we're even debating those two, it just shows you where it's at. But yeah, I mean, Paul Birdman, you probably got to go back that far unless I'm missing something.
Turner on Tristan Thompson was pretty dang good.
Yeah, that is a good one as well. Nesmith's a guy that I'm just still waiting for. We had a few of those games in the regular season, Tony, where it was like, wait a minute.
26. Whoa.
Yeah. And like, again, maybe I'm asking for that, but like, especially with the defensive assignment maybe not being as taxing, we'll see what happens, played out. But boy, can you just get a 4 3-point game from him, attacking the rim like he's shown to do as well. I think that would be a huge thing we haven't seen just yet from him in this postseason.
Last 2 things, one good, one bad. 3 fouls in the first half for both Nembhard and Nesmith. I think that changed the Pacers rotation in a way that they didn't like in the first half, just ever so slightly. And they both picked up their third foul like 75 seconds apart. They can set a foul trouble. That 1 gives the Pacers more defensive options on Brunson to do what you said earlier, and 2 is just better because they're good players. 2, I think the Pacers actually offensively did well to attack Jalen Brunson. I think that's why you saw Nembhard handle as much as he did, and that largely worked, even though Nembhard had I'll say shooting game. I look forward to seeing what the adjustments are in game 2. Do you have anything else from game 1, Kevin Bowen, or can people just get excited about hearing us talk once again tomorrow morning?
Yeah, I just I'm just ready for 8:00. Frankly, and again, it's probably more curiosity than anything. And I felt very similar after game 1 of the Bucks series, but New York is different than Milwaukee. I mean, they're just wired differently. So, how does your ability to punch? How does that land? Game 7s on the road, I just think those are borderline impossible. So if you want to break it down, you either got to get game 2 or game 5. And that's why, obviously the onus on tomorrow night is huge. So can't wait for it. Tony, I want to say it every time I come on and you come on our show. Can't thank you enough, man, for your coverage. It's outstanding. Pacers fans are beyond lucky to have you. It's one of my favorite first listens each morning. Try to dial it up before the show.
Branding, baby.
Yes, I mean that in all seriousness, man. So, and a few times when I haven't been able to get the kids down at 2 a.m., I fire in the AirPod and I'm like, you know what? I'll go rock Max and get my 30-minute.
I don't know how it puts the kids to sleep hits as an advertisement for the podcast. But, I'll keep that one in the back pocket. I think that the Pacers had the best player very early in the Bucks series. They did not have the best player last night. Can they have the best player in game 2? Can they win a road game? Because as I said, they haven't lost at home since March 18th Getting one road win, obviously very critical in any series where you're the underseeded team. Kevin Bowen, thank you for the time. People who are watching on YouTube can see that your handle is KBowen1070. But why is that your handle? Where can people find you? Your work covering or talking about the Pacers, covering the Colts, all that jazzy jazz.
Yeah, it's actually a throwback handle. 1075 The Fan is 1070.
Oh boy, I am fired for that one. Holy moly!
No, that's all on me. I'm a man of tradition. So yes, here in Indianapolis with the ESPN radio affiliate, the Pacers radio affiliate, 1075 The Fan, 7 to 10 a.m. every morning. Tony East will grace his presence at 9:40 on Wednesday morning with us. So we greatly appreciate sleep until 9:38 and waking up with us after that.
Kevin's producer texts me and says, "Can you come on?" And then he gives me 2 times. I don't think he realizes I always pick the later one. So that is my strategy for the morning show. Kevin, this was great. Everybody will be back after Game 3 from In the Garden. Hopefully, it's not freezing as they set up for no Rangers game this time, and I can actually do it like a normal person. We'll see. See you tomorrow, everybody. Take care. Till then, have a wonderful day.